Morning. Morning. All right, we're good. Okay, let's go ahead and open up to Revelation. We'll be covering chapter 13 today, but we'll start in chapter 12 since it's all the same section here. So in chapter 12 and verse 1, it says, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems. And his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven, and they threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that she would be nourished for 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. The dragon and his angels waged war. And they were not strong enough. There was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who was called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, Now the salvation, the power, and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters have been thrown down, he who accuses them before our God day and night. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb, because of the word of their testimony, and they did not love their life even when faced with death. For this reason rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. So the dragon was enraged with the woman, and went off to make war with the rest of her children, who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. And the dragon stood on the sands of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, on his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne, his great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war against him? There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with a sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and he makes the earth and those who dwell in it worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. He performed great signs, so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And he causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the freed men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. and he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Okay. So, chapter 13 is one of the more famous ones, at least as far as the world's concerned. We got the mark of the beast, among other things here. So, any particular questions you want addressed in chapter 13? Yes, sir? Oh, okay. So, in chapter 12, we just have the dragon. So that's what you have in chapter 12. And then you have what we'll call the sea beast in chapter 13. And then you have the earth beast. And then we'll see later on, he's called a false prophet. This is the only time he's called the earth beast here. So in chapter 12, it's just the dragon. That's all you have. And then the beast that comes out of the sea is different from the dragon. It's different. Yep. Yes, it does have some similarities, and we'll talk about that in just a second here. Joseph, you have a question? Okay, so the mark of the beast, okay. When we get to that, we'll definitely talk about that. For the beast. You said a mark or action? Okay. Any other questions on chapter 13 that you want addressed? Okay. You guys just don't have much in the way of questions. Go ahead. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's turn back to Daniel chapter 7. We'll take a moment to read that chapter. In Daniel 7, it says this: In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and a vision in his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote the dream down and related to the following the summary of it. Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of the heaven were stirring up the great sea. And 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion, and had the wings of an eagle. And I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind also was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear. It was raised up on its one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. And thus they said to it, Arise, devour much meat. After this I kept looking, and behold, another one like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I kept looking in the night vision. Behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrifying, and extremely strong, and had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And behold, this horn possesses eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth uttering great boasts. I kept looking, pardon me, until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat, and his vesture was like white snow, and his hair of his head like pure wool, and his throne was ablaze with flames, and its wheels were a burning fire. And a river of fire was flowing and coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands were attending him, and myriads upon myriads were standing before him. The court sat, and the books were open. And then I kept looking because of the sound of the boastful words which the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, its body was destroyed, and given to the burning fire. As, pardon me, as for the rest of the beasts, Their dominion was taken away, but an extension of life was granted to them for an appointed period of time. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of the heaven, one like a son of man was coming, and came up to the Ancient of Days, and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom. Then all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. His dominion is everlasting dominion, which will not pass away, and his kingdom is one which will not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed within me, and the visions in my mind kept alarming me. I approached one of those who were standing by and began asking him to explain, asking him the exact meaning of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. These great beasts, which are four in number, are four kings who will rise from the earth. For the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom, possess the kingdom forever, for all ages to come. Then I desired to know the exact meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with teeth of iron and claws of bronze, which devoured, crushed, and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And the meaning of the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, and before which 3 of them fell, namely the horn which had eyes and mouth uttering great boasts, and which was larger in appearance than its associates. I kept looking, and that horn was waging war with the saints and overpowering them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one. And the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast will be a fourth kingdom of the earth, which will be different from all the other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth and tread it down and crush it. As for the 10 horns out of the kingdom, 10 kings will arise, and another will rise after them, and he will be different from the previous ones, and will subdue these 3 kings. He will speak out against the Most High, and wear down the saints to the highest one, and he will intend to make alterations in time and in law, and they will be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will sit in judgment, and his dominion will be taken away, annihilated, and destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty of the dominion and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole earth will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all the dominions will serve and obey him. At this point, the revelation ended. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts were greatly alarming me, and my face grew pale, but I kept the matter to myself. Okay, so what I want you to see, first of all, is that chapter 13 of the Revelation draws heavily from Daniel chapter 7. But he doesn't just quote Daniel chapter 7. As we talked about a while back last year, Revelation doesn't quote any passage. He just uses the imagery and modifies it here. So in Daniel, you have 4 beasts, and in the Revelation, we just have 1 beast. In Daniel, you have you have a leopard, a bear, and a lion. And we saw that in Daniel. The leopard has 4 heads, and then we have 2 heads for the other people, and then we have the 4th beast, so we get 7 heads. We have 10 horns, we have 10 diadems, and so you see that John takes all that imagery, combines it into 1 beast, and so we have in chapter 13, verse 1 of Revelation, I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and the heads were blasphemous names, because that little horn kept blaspheming against the saints, against God. So he takes all that imagery and combines it into one, into here. In the book of Daniel, the angel tells Daniel that those are 4 empires that are coming to rise. King is synonymous with the kingdom here. And so when you study Daniel, you'll get to the 4th empire being the Roman Empire. And most everybody agrees on that. So we see this beast coming up here. We want to see it having some connection with whatever Daniel talked about. And what we want to see is that John says the dragon, in chapter 12 and in verse 17, so the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of his children who keep commandments of God and hold testimony of Jesus. So the dragon wants to wage war. And the way the dragon wages war is through the sea beast and then the earth beast. I just call it the sea beast because it's the beast that comes out of the sea. I just call it the earth beast because it's the beast that comes out of the earth. Don't get confused. It doesn't actually say sea beast. So the sea beast, we see that imagery drawn from Daniel 7, and we want to see the Roman Empire. The earth beast, we'll see about in a minute here. That's how Daniel understood his prophecies, and that's how John understood the prophecies here. And that's exactly how the people in the first century understood the prophecies. The question for us, though, is why didn't John just say the Roman Empire is being used by Satan? Watch out for the Roman Empire. How would you guys answer that? Why didn't he just make things clear? I can't tell you how many 10 billion pages on the internet will give you a different answer other than this. Why didn't he just make it clear? Because we could have saved all that internet space. No thoughts? He'd be next in line. Anybody else? I mean, I don't know the answer. So, I mean, I got an answer, but so there's no wrong answers necessarily. No thought? Yeah, it's a flaw in humanity that it's just a tribute to our arrogancy that we look at everybody else and think they're dumber than us. This is why people, when they play chess, they're always surprised when they lose. They just always think, I'm smarter than this guy across from me, and my strategy is ironclad, and then boom, you lose. The idea that the Roman Empire would not have known what John's letter meant is not true at all. Okay? They understood the idea of using imagery to refer to something else. They understand the idea of parody. They understood all those ideas. So they would have known that was going on, that John was referring to it, because these imagery, it wasn't something that sprang out of John. It was imagery that was being used by lots of people in this time frame. So 100 years before the life of John, and then after the death of John, people were using the same sort of imagery. But what I want you to ask is, if the sea beast is the Roman Empire, then why didn't he just say the Roman Empire? Why describe it as a beast? Okay? If we say it's the Roman Empire, then there's a terminus. There's an end point. And then that frees all of us to say, okay, this doesn't apply to us. Yes, ma'am? Yes. See, if we say that the dragon empowers the sea beast, and the sea beast is the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire is long gone, well then, what's the dragon doing here? But that's why I gave everybody a long time. But he didn't describe it as the Roman Empire. He uses the same imagery as Daniel chapter 7. And we understand that that is, at least initially, the Roman Empire. But really, we do want to see the sea beast as, political whatever here. Because we should not think that Satan is not active today. We should not think that Satan is unwilling to use whatever empires exist today, from some small island to some world-reaching empire, to further his means, his ends, his goals. Because he is going to do that. And he is going to empower whomever to accomplish his goal, because at his heart, he hates us because he could not destroy Jesus. And because he couldn't do that, he's going to take out his anger on us. Now, for many of us, our anger comes up in a moment and is gone in a moment. Some of us have anger that lasts a few days, few weeks. Sometimes we have it last for years. And a lot of times it's really hard for us to understand things that lasting for years. But Satan's anger lasts his entire existence. He hates us with every fiber of his being, and he wants nothing more than to destroy every single last one of us. And he's going to be destroyed. He knows that. But he's going to drag down as many beings with him as he can. So John describes the dragon empowering the sea beast, not because he wants to say this is Roman Empire, but because he just wants to say this is whatever political power is floating along. Because, again, Satan is doing all that he can to destroy each and every one of us here. Now, you notice that the dragon is the one that empowers the sea beast. And how long does he empower him for? How long is the sea beast going to do whatever he's going to do? 42 months. Where did we see 42 months before? I guess it took months here. So, that's right. Chapter 11. The 42 months, that's the time the outer court's going to be destroyed, trampled under, and then 42 months, the sea beast reigns. Well, does it say she's nourished for 42 months? Yes. No? That's right. Yes. So, don't get me wrong. 42 months, 1,260 days, a time times half a time. Those are all the same time, but he describes 42 months and then he describes 1,260 days for different things here. The 42 months are the time when Satan is going to be doing whatever he's going to be doing here. And I don't know if you noticed this in my reading here, but in chapter 13, so in verse 3 of chapter 13, I saw one of his heads as it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And they worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. So the dragon gives his authority to the beast, and they worship the beast. So they worship the beast because the dragon gave his authority to the beast, but when they worship the beast, they worship the dragon. Okay. Who is like the beast and is able to wage war against him? Verse 5. There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in it. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and the authority over every tribe, people, tongue, nation was given to him. So the was given to him. What does that mean to you guys? What does that imply? Sorry. Say again? No, I'm not. So, what? Okay, so he couldn't do it with his own authority. Okay, we're getting closer. So, okay. So we see the dragon, he gives his authority to the sea beast. So we see that. We got dragon giving his authority to the sea beast. And then it says it was given to the sea beast to do these things for 42 months. It was given to the sea beast to utter these blasphemous names. It was given to the sea beast to overcome the saints. It was given. We've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again here. In the Revelation, was given is always talking about what God does. God is the one who has ultimate authority, and he's the one who gives beings the ability to act. So Satan did not empower the sea beast to only act for 42 months because the dragon wants to destroy us, and if it takes a lifetime, he wants to do that. He's not going to limit his servant's scope of authority because he gave everything to the sea beast that he himself had. He wants him to do that here. Instead, God is the one who limits the sea beast's reign to 42 months. Just like he said back in chapter 11 that the outer court be trampled only for 42 months. Now, 42 months is a symbolic number, and we understand that's taken place from the ascension of Jesus to his second coming, however long that is, that's the spiritual 42 months. But we want to see that while it looks like the dragon has all this great authority, he still is a created being. He still is being controlled ultimately by God. What does that help us to see? What does that imply to us? What does that mean to us if the dragon has limits placed on him by God? You know, Barsha said, God is in control. Don't misunderstand me. God is not responsible for the evil that happens in this world. Okay? God is not the one who encourages somebody to murder somebody. God is not the one who encourages somebody to hate somebody else. God is not the one who causes anybody to sin, nor does he tempt people to sin. So God doesn't do any of that here. But God is in charge. And he allows things for his reasons, some of which we understand, many of which we do not understand. We do not understand why bad things have to happen to us. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we understand that bad things happen to us because we sinned. This is just a consequence of our sin. Sometimes we can look back at our life and say, well, it was good this happened to us because it changed my outlook and I see things differently now and I trust in God more. Yes, ma'am? We do need God for all that. And a lot of times we do have struggles to remind us that we need God. But there are a lot of things that happen to us that we can't put into a category as to why it happened to us. And that's just an indication that we are finite human beings and we do not understand everything. We like to think we could. We like to think we should. We like to think that all the answers for everything are in the Bible. But all the answers that we need are in the Bible. Not all the answers to all the questions that we have. I don't know if you've raised inquisitive children, but they have questions about all kinds of things. Some of them you know, and you exhaust your answers, and eventually, go ask somebody else. Leave me alone. Don't you have things you need to clean up? You need to go do this work or whatever, and we push them off because we don't have those answers here. Well, God has answers for everything, but he's not going to give us answers for everything here. The revelation is constantly trying to remind each one of us that God is in control, not that God causes the bad things to happen to us. So Antipas in chapter 2 was a martyr for the faith. God didn't cause him to die. So that wasn't him. God didn't kill Antipas, but God did allow it to happen. And if God didn't want it to happen, then by all means it would never have happened. So God did allow it. He's in charge. He allowed it for his reasons, and that's up to him. This is one of those lessons we get from the book of Job. We can see that Satan is saying Job only worships God because of these things, and God's like, well, go ahead and do some things. And Satan takes his wealth, takes his children, takes his reputation, takes his health, and through it all, God never gives an answer to Job about why he had to suffer. At the very end, all God ever says to Job, because throughout the whole book, Job keeps saying, God, I just want to talk with you. We need to go to court because you have not treated me right. And so when God finally does answer him, his answer is just a series of questions. He never answers them. He's like, where were you when you did this? Explain to me this. And he has no answers. Again, reminding Job that he is the creation and God is the creator. And that's all he gets. And of course, he gets more children, but that doesn't replace the children he died. You know, you can't take one for another. It's not like a cookie. You know, kids are kids, they're lives. But God still gave him more lives, but that doesn't make up for the lives that are lost. And Job lived his whole life and died never knowing what went on. God allowed it because God's in charge. We can try to draw some understanding from it, but we don't think we have the full, complete understanding of why God allowed Job to go through what he did. So in chapter 13, we see the dragons trying to wage war, but God's still in control. And the sea beast, he comes up, and he has all this power, all this authority. And you saw in verse 7? And it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. You know, we spent a quarter talking about chapters 2 and 3, and the consistent theme in those chapters is that he who overcomes will be given this reward. Talking about us. If we overcome, if we survive, if we remain faithful to God, we'll receive these rewards. But here, that same word's being used to say the sea beast is going to overcome the saints and kill them. They're going to die. Because that power was given to him. Again, that reminds us that if something happens to us, God is not unaware of it. God is never surprised when we lose a job. God is never surprised when we wake up and we have a cold. God was not surprised this morning when I leaned over to grab something and my back locked up. I was surprised. If I'd known that was going to happen, I'd have tried to do things differently. But I didn't know it was going to happen. It was a surprise to me. Now I'm walking gingerly for a couple of days. God's never surprised about that. Satan thinks he knows everything and how he can get us, and he's really good at what he does, but he is not all-knowing, and he is not all-powerful. Things are given to him. He has authority to do things, and when God is done with that, then he'll just grab the dragon, grab Satan, and then toss him to the lake of fire, and then that's it. It doesn't matter how much the dragon resists. It doesn't matter how much the dragon objects to it. God's in charge, and he'll just take care of that, which is what we want to remember, that God is in control. So the sea beast is not described as the Roman Empire because God doesn't want us to limit how Satan does things, just the Roman Empire. We shouldn't think that because we're Americans that our government is divinely approved. Okay? It certainly is the case that our government does things that are biblical and are true. But it's certainly the case that our government does things that are sinful and against God. The government is just a government. And it has a role to play in this world. And God empowers the government to do what it needs to do. And when God doesn't want that government to exist anymore, it just falls away. Most all of you are old enough to remember the Soviet Union. Most all of you are old enough to remember how powerful it seemed to be. And then it just seemed like almost overnight, it just collapsed from within. And then boom, we don't have that anymore. And then we just have Russia. And we have all these countries around it. And we have all these wars that are going on, all these things that are happening over there. all this generational hate that's going on that we didn't know about that was going on here, because God's in charge. It looks like America's all powerful, and it could last another couple hundred years or could last 1 year. Again, all of you are old enough to remember what happened in 2008 when you had that housing crash and trillions of dollars evaporated just like that. All that wealth gone. All of you are old enough to remember COVID. In an instant, the world came crashing home. In an instant, wealth evaporated. In an instant, our whole world changed, and everybody was afraid to do anything because we thought we were in charge, and God constantly reminds us, I'm in charge. I can take things you can't see and stop you guys from doing everything that you thought you should always do because I'm in charge. So, John is writing to the Christians in the first century, but he's writing to us, and he's trying to remind us that the dragon wants to destroy us, and the way the dragon does that is by empowering the sea beast and the earth beast to do whatever it's going to do. So, I don't know if you noticed that this sea beast, it seems a lot like Christ. Did anybody notice any connections in the Revelation between the sea beast and Jesus? Okay. Okay, so that's an excellent point right there. So we saw back in chapter 5, the lamb standing as if slain. That same exact phrase is used here. That he had this wound. In verse 3, I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain. Okay. Now, you should also notice that the dragon gives the sea beast authority, power, dominion. God gave Jesus power, authority, dominion. Uh-huh. All right, excellent. Yes, that is true here. And then we should see that he has 10 diadems. But of course, Jesus over in chapter 19 has an unlimited number of diadems here. He's got followers that have their name, their number tattooed on their forehand, on their hand or their forehead, which is, of course, where God seals his children on their hand or their forehead. You know, what the Apostle John expects you to see from this is that there really are connections between the dragon, sea beast, earth beast, and the Father, Son, Spirit. Because the dragon likes to masquerade as if he's God. Well, what I'm saying is that the dragon tries to parody God. So the dragon tries to act like he's God, and he empowers the sea beast. And the sea beast, when the Apostle John wrote it, he makes connections with the Son so he can see, so you can see that the sea beast acts like the Son acts like. And then we'll see the earth beast or the false prophet acts like the Spirit acts like, or the two witnesses, depending on how you look at it here. And the dragon, Satan, does that because he wants to appeal to us. He wants to have this air of religiosity, that he looks like he's religious, faithful, true, whatever here. But he never is. He's just lying, deceitful, trying to destroy everything he ever can. So, when you look at verse 5, there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven, that Satan, the dragon, the sea beasts, the earth beasts, they're all trying to act against God, but the way they act against God is to slander those who dwell with God, which would be us. We dwell with God. We live with God. Now, it does say in heaven, and some people want to limit that to only those who have died. But when I read Ephesians chapter 1 and 2 and 3, I see that we dwell in the heavenly places. I see that we are up there with God here. And so when God tabernacles with us, he dwells with us. We have God inside us. We have God around us. God is with us. And Satan is trying to slander each and every one of us all the time, which is, of course, one of the reasons why bad things happen to us at work, at school, in our relationships with our neighborhood, in our relationships with our family, because Satan does what he can to destroy us, to slander us. That's what blasphemy means here, to speak against. We think of blasphemy only in a very religious, narrow sense, but in the first century it's used as a regular word, like we use the word slander. And so the dragon, the sea beast, they're trying to slander us, Christians, so that we eventually are destroyed, which is, of course, what happened. So in the first century, you could be going along, and somebody could accuse you of saying something against the emperor. And then you'd be dragged off to prison, so you had your court date, and then you'd be either freed or executed. And that's what happened here. And there was no rhyme or reason. Just somebody made an accusation against you, and sometimes you're successful in defending yourself. A lot of times you weren't successful in defending yourself, which is what happens today. Sometimes people say bad things against you when you're doing the right things, and sometimes you're able to persuade people, no, this is a misunderstanding, this is what I meant, this is what happened. Other times, they don't believe you, and you can't do anything about that. I don't know if you guys have ever had run-ins with the government, but the government very much is this large entity that is like the DMV. It just is hard to get through. They don't want to understand logic. They don't want to understand what actually happened. They just want to understand their rules, and those rules sometimes change, and you get caught up in the machine, and then you're chewed up, spit out, and whatever's happening to you here. That is what the dragon does to us. That is what the sea beast does to us here. And that's what John wants to remind you guys is going to happen. But he wants to remind you that the dragon, the sea beast, earth beast are limited in what they can do. All we've got to do, according to John, is he says in verse 10, if anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here's the perseverance and the faith of the saints. He's trying to remind us that we need to persevere because bad things will happen to us. Now, my understanding of verse 10 is this is talking about what's going to happen to the saints, that we're going to be persecuted, we're going to die. It is entirely possible that this is talking about what's going to happen to those who persecute the saints. That if they killed us with the sword, they're going to die of the sword. If they took us into captivity, they're going to go into captivity. That's a possibility. I don't see that, but I certainly understand how you can get that. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. You see in verse 9, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. So pay attention to what is going on, what I've just said, and what I'm saying now. These things are going to happen to you here, which is what he just said, that in verse 7, he's going to make war with the saints and overcome them. And of course, he has authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him, which of course reminds us back in chapter 5 that Jesus has people from every tribe, tongue, nation, people worshiping him, and those are from his people here. So again, another parody of what Jesus is. All those who dwell on the earth, in verse 8, will worship him, worship the sea beast, worship the dragon. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. Anybody have a different translation of verse 8? Say something different? Okay. So Joseph's translation does the foundation of the world to the Lamb. Some translations attach the foundation of the world to those who were slain. It's not clear how we should do it. In chapter 17 and in verse 8, it is clear that we are written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. In 1 Peter, it's clear that Jesus was slain from the foundation of the world, that it was preordained, it was going to happen here. What John wants us to get from this is that God already knows who's going to be faithful, who's going to be saved, and he just needs us to persevere. I don't know if you've ever had a test, taken a test, and you didn't know if you were going to pass or fail. I'm going to pick on one of my sons, Isaiah. He went and took, he had French this year, and we'd ask him after every test, how'd you do? He's like, I think I did great. And he'd come back, his grade was like a C, and then it just dropped to a D, and then it dropped to an F. Every test he came back, he thought he did great on, and it just got worse and worse and worse. He had no clue what was going on here. Sometimes we think we're doing great, and we're not. Sometimes we think we're doing horrible, and we're not. It's important for us to realize, however, that God knows what's actually going to happen. And God has said that if you trust in Jesus, you'll get to heaven. And I believe that. God says, I believe that. So I've written your name in my book of life. I just need you to believe that. I just need you to persevere. I just need you to endure. I don't need you to be perfect, though we do have passions to talk about being perfect here, because I know you're a sinner. I just need you to persevere. I need you not to give up. And we have got to realize that Satan is just a talker. He is constantly whispering in our ears that you are a failure, you are a screw up, you are a hypocrite, just give up. And we watch all these TV shows, we watch these movies, we read these books, we do whatever on the internet, and constantly Satan is whispering things to us that are undermining our relationship with God, so that we will get to the point where we give up. I don't know if many of you have had a friend who's committed suicide. You know, it's a horrible thing when you look back on your relation with that person. You're like, I don't know why they did that. I don't know what pushed them to the point where their only recourse they could see was to end their life. It's a horrible thing. It's a sad thing. But that is what Satan does to each one of us. He pushes us to the extreme to where we give up our life and relationship with God. It's just not visible to everybody else. We may still go to church. We may still walk the walk, talk the talk, but inside we're just dead. Inside, like, I don't believe in God. I don't know. I just do this out of habit. I say please and thank you because I've always done that. I bow my head and say whatever, but I don't really believe that anymore. Because Satan is constantly trying to undermine our relationship with God. And God is saying, I just need you to trust me. And the only way you're going to trust me is be reminded about what I have done for you, which is why I want you to pray, because you're reminding yourself about what I've done for you, and why I want you to read, because you see that I created you. You see that I'm sustaining you. You see I took care of all these people. You see I did all these things. How much more am I going to do for you? And you just need to have that constant positive reinforcement. But Satan's tricky. He is able to distract us with work, with games, with pleasure, with pain, with aches, with all kinds of things to get us to say, oh, I just can't pray today. I can't read today. I can't this. And you just miss it. And before you know it, you're out of your habit. And then Satan's halfway there to his victory. God is constantly reminding each one of us we have just got to persevere. It's not a race. I mean, we're not running this race. We're just walking. So, it sounds like walking's hard, but it's really not. So, in the month of December, I walked over 1 million steps. It was purposeful, and I tried to do that here. And it sounds like a lot. And on the one hand, it is a lot. On the other hand, it's not so much. You'd be surprised how many steps you guys take in the course of a year. You're like, wow, I didn't realize I've walked that many miles in the course of a year. And all God wants you to do is just keep taking one step after the next step. He's not saying, why didn't you walk 1,000 miles? Why did you only walk 100 miles? He just wants you to walk. Keep going. He's not saying, why didn't you get farther here? Why don't you do better here? He's just saying, I need you to trust me. I'm with you. I am walking with you. Whatever speed that is, I am walking with you. Just persevere and endure. Roddy, go ahead. Mhm. All of you should be old enough to have realized that your internal conversations affect your life. I tell my kids, don't say to yourself, you're going to fail, because you will eventually fail. You've got to be positive. Don't say to yourself, I'm nothing but a horrible sinner. While that may be true, that's not how God sees you. God says, you accepted my son. I washed your sins away. I killed my son for you because I loved you that much. So just trust in me. I love you enough to sustain you today. I love you enough to help you walk today. I love you enough to help you wake up today. I love you enough to help you breathe today. Trust me. And if we can just change our thoughts to be a little more reliant on God, we will see Satan's lies for what they are, that they're lies. I don't know if you guys are filled with regret about all your previous decisions, or if you're like, okay, it was a live and learn sort of thing here. I have people in my life that are consumed with regret, and I have people in my life that are like, well, it's a live and learn. I'm not going to go back and do those things again, but I just need to go forward from today because today is the only day that really matters. All the previous decisions, I can't change those. All the future decisions, I can't do anything about. I just need to concentrate on today. And today, God's taking care of me. Today, God is blessing me. Today, God is sustaining me. I just need to trust God. So, in chapter 13, you want to see that it says the sea beast overcomes the saints. So, it has every appearance that the sea beast wins. Because it says the whole world worships the sea beast. The whole world worships the dragon. Has every appearance that Christians are some minority, and we're being overwhelmed at every stage of the game. But that's just our perception that Satan is trying to get us to see. What we need to understand is the game's already over. God's already won the victory, and we're just in this mop-up operations here, which is this last little bit here, and nothing's going to change except whether we're going to continue walking forward or give up. It is encouraging to me how many times the Bible talks about, I just need you guys to endure. Because it reminds me that giving up just seems to be what Satan wants us to do, and how easy it is for us to do, and then how God goes around and gives us a new day. It doesn't matter how many times we gave up yesterday. Today's a new day. We can be faithful today. We can rely on God today. Satan wants to take your past against you and use that against you and get you to give up because you're all these things here. And God says, I just need you to focus on today. Today is a day I have given you. Trust me today. And before you know it, today will turn into tomorrow and then next week. And then you'll have a lifetime of being faithful. Lots of ups and downs, but you'll have a lifetime of being faithful. You look at Norman. He became a Christian when he was a young man. He wasn't born in the church. He wasn't born hearing these songs. He didn't grow up doing these things here. He made a decision, and it was never an easy decision. He just made it, and then he's at the end of his life now. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he's got another 10 years. I don't know. And he's like, it's hard to believe I've lived this long. It's hard to believe I've gone through all these things here. Because there are so many times in my life I've wondered how God was going to get us through this. I wondered how we we're going to do these things. And yet, we made it through all these things here. I don't know if you've had the experience of how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to provide for your children? How are you going to make it through this horrible situation? I've had lots of those. Here I am 30 years later, like, I don't know how God did it, but he did it. And I couldn't see it. I can't hardly remember it here. I just know that he's brought me here to this place today, and I just need to persevere. I just need to endure, which is why he says that. In verse 10, here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. We just need to trust God. Okay, you go ahead. God does that. God does that. He just takes a moment, and we really are like little children. We get in a fight, we fall down, we skin our knees, we're crying bloody murder. We get up, show our parent, mom does something, and boom, we're good. We run off and play like it never happened before. And dad's like, I don't know what happened there. She didn't actually do anything. She just kissed it, and boom, it's all gone away here. That's what God does to us. He just takes care of us, and we've just got to trust him. Okay, so we will talk about the mark of the beast and the earth beast next week, and then we'll probably go into a little bit of chapter 14, depending upon how long our discussion about the mark of the beast goes on here. Class dismissed.